Sir, we got a question for you. I would like to ask if the American grand strategy in the Middle East has fundamentally changed. Is it correct to say that the United States' interest moved from the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific, or is it just an opportunity to restructure the American commitment in the Middle East? Sir.
Well, I appreciate the question. And the rebalance has been underway for quite some time now. And I thought it was important when I came out of the Middle East in 2013, commanding all U.S. Army forces in the Middle East and Central Asia, and became the commander of a similar structure, all U.S. Army forces in the Indo-Pacific region, at the time of the strategic rebalance initiating. Initially, it had been called a pivot. And the pivot was not well received because it sounded like turning your back on one side and now facing the other side. There's a lot in words when it comes to international relations and in public diplomacy, communicating what your real intentions are. I found the rebalance to be much more accurate. It certainly reflected the experience that I had, and I believe is ongoing even now. That is, how much of your weight, if you were standing on both feet, how much of your weight do you put on one foot versus on the other foot? It doesn't mean that you've completely lifted your foot off, but that you maintain balance between the two. But you may have more of your weight shifted to one side to another or another. We have had a long history in the Indo-Pacific region. I'll speak from my experience as an Army officer. The United States Army has been in the Pacific since 1898. With expeditionary forces and operations, and it has never departed since 1898. But it's very clear that the weight shifted first to Europe during World War II, and then again to Europe in the Cold War, and then to the Middle East in the 1990s up to the present. But the foot never left the Pacific. Korea is one good example of that, but not the only one. And so now it's a matter of changing the weight. Now, is that the right geopolitical move? That's not something I'm going to try to address. That's something that the governments have had to decide, and it's now been several administrations who have recognized the need to do this based on where they believe our future is going to be most importantly addressed. And that is not to disengage from the rest of the world. The United States as a global leader cannot afford to do that, and I doubt ever will. But it does shift its weight. And so it's very clear that the weight is changing in the Middle East. Now, the Middle East still has its countless problems, and many of those run in conflict with the interests of the United States. So the United States has to be engaged there to address its strategic interests and its national interests, and those of allies, by the way, who have key interests in the region as well. There will be a continued connection to the Middle East for decades to come. But when it comes to military presence, that clearly is changing. When it comes to the greatest danger that is emerging, the assessment is a peer-to-peer fight with China is the greatest danger. And a more urgent dynamic with both North Korea and Russia could happen sooner than a full peer-to-peer. These are not considered two peers. But if it happens, it could be very problematic. And so this is what I believe we're witnessing here, Young Lee, and it is that the balance is changing. There is always a risk in that. Okay, you see things like Afghanistan unfolding, the emotional effect of changing balance is notable, and it can change your interest from the assumptions that you had when you first began to change your weight. If you were standing on a piece of solid ground and a piece of ice, both of them might be solid for you. But as you begin to shift weight, one might slip, and it might cause you to reconsider the amount of weight you put on it. And the Middle East can be very, very icy. It can be very slippery, and things can change very, very quickly there. That may cause a continuing rebalancing of the effort. But the priority is very clearly for the U.S. strategies, and many other countries, by the way, it is to the Indo-Pacific region. And it's to ensure that there's an international order that leaves room for countries like China and every other country in the South Korea, Japan, to emerge as they did through their own potential without being punished in a system of punishment like China did to South Korea with the deployment of THAAD. And countries are now having to decide which way they want to go, which order do they want to be a part of. And it doesn't mean they have to be against China to do that. But one is dominated by China, the other includes China. And the one that is dominated by China will be dominated by the characteristics of China's international relations, which includes debt diplomacy, which includes punishment through economic means. It includes flooding markets when it chooses to do so. And that's an imbalanced economic environment. And I think countries are going to have to take a look at that, particularly the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. South Korea's policies are oriented toward trying to do more with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, and the U.S. and South Korean presidents this year at the summit affirmed that they would both work cooperatively to try to strengthen institutions and strengthen the countries of the Southeast Asian nations as well. This is where things are going. And this is what I think will set the conditions for a peaceful future or one of turmoil.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you very much. I know we couldn't get to all the questions, but what you have written in your questions, actually, a couple of them are going to be good research projects for the next internship class. So thank you very much. Sir, thank you very much for holding this roundtable discussion with the interns. Any departing words, sir?
No, just my great thanks to all of you. Once again, we hope that you got as much out of it as we did. You certainly made an impact in all the events and activities we had, and each contribution was one that was very, very important to us. We're a small team with a big reach. Our reach is international, and it continues to grow. Our membership continues to grow. All of these things are enabled by each one of you. And so we wish you great success in all that you're about to undertake. Remember the KDVA, talk to your friends about it. If you happen up in military service, make sure you remind them to join, because we want them in there. And we want you to continue to be associated with us. Good luck to each one of you, and thank you very much.